an innocent girl and her sufferings aid dreamers. You're listening to inspiring life stories, where calm voices meet powerful lessons. Close your eyes, relax your mind, and drift into stories that heal your heart. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll, subscribe, share, and let someone else feel inspired too, because one story can change a life, maybe even yours. First snow of the season had fallen over Hollow Creek, blanketing the small village in silence. The wind whispered between the wooden rooftops, rattling chimneys and carrying the distant smell of burning wood. Most of the villagers were indoors, tending their hearths and huddling against the cold, but under the old wooden bridge at the edge of the frozen river, a small figure crouched in the shadows. Her name was Lydia Hart, a girl of 9, with tangled chestnut hair and eyes the color of winter skies, gray, but bright with a hidden spark. Her dress was patched with scraps of old cloth, her shoes worn thin at the soles. Frost bit her fingers, but she held them close to her chest, clutching a small crust of bread she had saved from the day before. Hunger gnawed at her belly, yet her spirit refused to bend. The bridge was her sanctuary. It was cold, damp, and hidden from the world, but it was the only place that felt like her own. Here, no one demanded anything of her, no one scolded her, and no one forced her to leave. I found comfort in its shadowed corners, wrapping herself in a threadbare shawl, whispering to herself, tomorrow will be brighter. Tonight, however, something had changed. As Lydia adjusted the small fire she had coaxed from driftwood and old scraps, she noticed a glint in the snow nearby. Curious, she crawled toward it and discovered a broken lantern, its glass cracked, its metal handle rusted. Most would have discarded it, but Lydia saw something more, a flicker of possibility. She lifted it carefully, whispering, you and I will shine together. Hours passed as she patched it with string, wire, and scraps of metal she had scavenged. Her hands ached, her body trembled, but she persisted. Finally, the candle inside burned, weakly but steadily. Lydia gazed at the golden glow and felt warmth spreading through her chest, not just from the flame, but from the quiet pride of creation. She whispered to it, we can survive. We will survive. As she slept that night beside the lantern, Lydia dreamed of warmth, of a small home filled with laughter, of bread on the table, of someone waiting for her at the door. The lantern flickered beside her, casting dancing shadows across the snow-covered beams, as if joining her in her dream. Morning came gray and cold. Lydia wrapped the lantern in her shawl and walked into the village, careful to avoid the busy streets where the merchants and townsfolk hurried by. At the bakery, Mrs. Miller looked up from kneading dough, flour dusting her hands and cheeks. Good morning, child, she said, frowning at Lydia's tattered dress. Out so early again? Yes, Mum, Lydia whispered. I thought perhaps I could help sweep or carry something. Mrs. Dot Miller sighed but handed her a loaf of bread. Here, Dot, take it. But be careful out there. Lydia hugged it close and stepped back into the cold. She imagined sharing the bread with other children who wandered the streets hungry just as she once had. Even in scarcity, the idea of giving made her feel rich. The weeks that followed were harsh. Lydia navigated the village streets carefully, avoiding eyes that might scold her or see her as a burden. At night, she returned to the bridge, tending her lantern and sharing small scraps of bread with other children, but found living alone, hungry and cold. Under the faint glow of the lantern, she taught them simple lessons: how to patch clothing, how to carry food without losing it, how to stay brave even when the world seemed indifferent. One evening, a tall man in a fur-lined coat appeared, startling Lydia. His name was Mr. Alden, a merchant recently returned from the city. He saw the small girl tending the lantern, a handful of children huddled nearby, and something in him stirred. He offered warmth, a small cup of tea, and a safe place for the night. Hesitant but trusting, Lydia accepted, feeling the strange comfort of not being alone. Over the next weeks, Mr. Alden became her guardian. She helped around his home, learning letters, numbers, and the stories of the wider world. Yet she never forgot the bridge, the river, or the harsh winds that had taught her resilience. At night, she returned to the bridge, sharing stories with the children, tales of courage, hope, and determination, teaching them without words that even when abandoned, they could find strength within themselves. But Hollow Creek was not without danger. One morning, a wealthy landowner accused her of stealing from his storeroom. Though she had taken nothing, fear and humiliation gripped her Dotmer. Alden stood firm, defending her, but the warning from the landowner lingered. Lydia realized that survival required not only courage but wisdom, and she became careful, observant, and strategic in her movements through the village. Winter pressed on, relentless and cruel. The river froze, food became scarcer, and Lydia's small group of children relied on her for guidance, warmth, and hope. Each night under the bridge, she lit the lantern, gathering the children around, sharing food, warmth, and stories. The lantern became a symbol of light against darkness, of courage against fear, of hope against despair. Through the long nights, Lydia reflected on her journey. The hunger, the cold, the loneliness, they had shaped her, but they had not broken her. She realized that true strength lay not just in surviving herself, but in lifting others even when her own needs were pressing. She whispered to the lantern, "We've survived. We will survive everything else too, and one day we will shine beyond this bridge, beyond Hollow Creek, into a world that cannot ignore us." And so, beneath the old bridge, amid the frost and snow, Lydia Hart, a small orphan girl with tattered clothing and a broken lantern, carried within her a spark that could never be extinguished. That spark, hope, courage, and determination, would guide her through every hardship, shaping not only her destiny, but the lives of every child who came to her circle of light. The bridge was cold, the river frozen, the winds relentless, but Lydia's heart was warm. Had discovered the first lesson of life. The world may be harsh, but a single heart determined to shine could light the darkness for many. And that night, as the lantern flickered and the children slept around her, Lydia whispered one final truth to herself. We are stronger than we know. We are more than our hardships. We are light. The winter of Hollow Creek stretched long and cruel, leaving its imprint on the frozen river, the snow-laden roofs, and the faces of every villager. Yet beneath the old bridge, where the lantern's warm glow illuminated the night, Lydia Hart had found a rhythm to life that gave her purpose. She had become more than a child surviving the harsh elements. She had become a guardian, a teacher, a beacon for those even smaller and weaker than herself. Each morning began before dawn, when the village was still cloaked in cold shadows. Lydia would rise, shaking the frost from her hair and clothing, and check on the small group of children huddled beneath the bridge. Some were new arrivals, wandering, hungry, cold, unsure of their place in the world. Others were familiar faces drawn by Lydia's warmth, patience, and the flickering flame of hope she carried. She would wrap them in whatever scraps of cloth she had, share the remaining bread, and whisper encouragements as they braved the icy morning together. After tending to the children, Lydia would make her way to Mr. Alden's house at the top of the hill. The merchant had grown fond of her determination and resilience. He had begun teaching her not just letters and numbers, but also lessons about the wider world. How trade worked, how people navigated society, and more importantly, how character shaped destiny. Lydia absorbed these lessons with the same fervor she applied to survival. Each new piece of knowledge felt like a tool she could use to protect herself and those who relied on her. One cold morning, as she crossed the village square carrying a small bundle of bread for the children, she noticed a commotion near the church. A wealthy landowner's carriage had stopped, and a man in fine clothes was speaking harshly to the townsfolk. Curiosity pricked Lydia's mind, but she stayed back, keeping the children close. From whispers, she learned that the landowner had demanded a tithe from the villagers, a tax they could not possibly pay. The threat of punishment hung over the town like the dark clouds above. Lydia's heart clenched. She knew all too well the fear of having no power in the face of injustice. That night, as she lit her lantern beneath the bridge, she spoke to the children. We cannot control everything the world does to us, but we can choose how we act. Fear does not have to rule us. Courage does. Her words hung in the air like sparks from the flame, settling in the hearts of the young listeners. Days turned into weeks, and Lydia's understanding of her role deepened. She began to organize small tasks among the children, gathering firewood, repairing tattered clothing, and rationing food with care. Each child, once lost and alone, now had a purpose through these small acts. Lydia taught them responsibility, perseverance, and the simple power of working together. But life was not without its trials. One afternoon, while gathering wood near the river bank, Lydia encountered a boy older than her group, his eyes wary, his stance defensive. He carried a knife, a crude weapon, and spoke in sharp tones. "Step away from here. This is mine." Lydia froze, instinct telling her to retreat. But then she noticed the desperation in his eyes, the same hunger and fear she had known for so long. She lowered her voice, calm but firm. "There's enough for all of us. You don't need to fight." The boy hesitated, gripping the knife tightly, torn between survival instinct and curiosity. Slowly, he lowered the blade. You aren't afraid of me?" he asked. "I've had to survive worse," Lydia replied quietly. "But I've learned something. Fear isn't as strong as kindness." That night, the boy returned to the bridge, cautiously joining the group of children. Lydia welcomed him with gentle words, and as the lantern's glow reflected in his uncertain eyes, he began to relax. Over time, he became one of her most steadfast allies, learning not only to survive but to help others. The winter was long, and as the days grew shorter, Lydia began thinking beyond the immediate struggle. She dreamed of creating a small haven for children like herself, a place where they could eat, sleep, and learn, free from the harshness of the streets. The idea terrified her at first. She was still just a child, after all. Yet she felt the pull of responsibility in her chest, stronger than any fear. One evening, she confided in Murdat Alden, "I want to build something for the children, a home, a place where we can all be safe." The merchant studied her thoughtfully, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "It will not be easy," he said, "but your heart is determined. Perhaps that is more important than anything else. Where there is determination, there is always a way." Inspired, Lydia began to plan. She walked the village, quietly assessing abandoned buildings and unused spaces. She imagined walls lined with warmth, a place where laughter could thrive, where food could be shared, and where knowledge could flourish. Every night under the bridge, she shared these visions with the children. Though they were small, the spark of hope ignited in each of them. They began to contribute ideas to imagine a future brighter than the cold, gray winters of Hollow Creek. Challenges continued to rise. Villagers were suspicious and resources were scarce. Lydia often faced moments of doubt, staring into the lantern's flickering flame and wondering if her dream was foolish. Yet, each time despair threatened to creep in, she reminded herself the lantern had survived the cold nights, and so could she. Its fragile light was a mirror of her own resilience. The story of Lydia and her lantern slowly began to ripple through the village. Small acts of generosity emerged: a loaf of bread left on the bridge, a bundle of wood for fire, a patch of clothing sewn and handed to a child in need. People began to see that courage and kindness could inspire change. The lantern was no longer just a source of light beneath the bridge. It had become a symbol, a heartbeat of hope that resonated beyond the small circle of children. And yet, Lydia knew the journey had only begun. Each night, as the children slept in the meager warmth she had provided, she whispered to herself, "We are stronger than the cold, stronger than hunger, stronger than fear. Our light will reach beyond Hollow Creek. One day, everyone will see." By the end of the harshest winter months, Lydia's small group had grown in both number and spirit. Children who had once known only fear now knew trust, companionship, and purpose. As she watched them sleep, their faces illuminated by the gentle flicker of the lantern, she felt the first taste of triumph. Not a triumph of wealth or status, but of courage, resilience, and the undeniable power of hope. In the quiet beneath the bridge, Lydia Hart realized something profound. The lantern's light was not just a flame, nor her courage merely survival. Both were symbols of something greater: the strength to persist, the courage to lift others, and the truth that even in the harshest winters, a determined heart could shine far beyond the darkness. And so with each night, with each story told, and with each small act of kindness, Lydia's journey continued. One step closer to the life she envisioned, one flame brighter against the endless winter. One child guided by the light of hope. Spring arrived in Hollow Creek with hesitant steps. The snow began to thaw, revealing the muddy streets beneath and the first green shoots daring to pierce the frozen earth. For Lydia Hart, spring brought hope, but also new challenges. The village, which had been quiet and withdrawn through the long winter, began to stir with unrest and suspicion. Rumors about the small girl beneath the bridge spread, some fueled by fear, others by envy. Though Lydia's lantern had guided children and inspired quiet acts of kindness, not all hearts welcomed change. Some villagers whispered of the orphan witch who drew children away, filling their minds with stories and dreams rather than work and obedience. Parents worried their children would follow her example, defying authority or straying from tradition. Lydia felt the weight of these shadows, knowing that even light could not escape scrutiny. Despite the growing tension, Lydia continued her work. Each morning, she roused the children from their makeshift beds under the bridge, teaching them new skills, reading simple letters, sewing torn garments, and tending fires safely. She shared stories of courage, of heroes small and great, and of the belief that a single determined heart could change the course of many lives. One afternoon, while collecting wild herbs for the children, Lydia overheard a heated conversation near the village square. The landowner, Mr. Thornton, had convened a meeting with several influential villagers. Their voices carried over the wind, sharp and accusatory. "She is a threat," one man said. "That child is stealing our labor, teaching our children rebellion. She is only giving guidance," another protested. "There's no harm in her actions. She undermines authority. Mark my words, if she is not removed, chaos will follow." Lydia's heart raced. She had anticipated suspicion, but the venom in their words startled her. She clenched the urge tightly, hiding behind a tree as the villagers dispersed. She realized the stakes had grown. It was no longer just survival. Now she faced opposition from those who feared the light she carried. That evening, Lydia gathered the children and spoke softly, her voice steady despite her own fear. "Some people will try to take her light. They may not understand it, but we must hold on. The lantern is more than fire. It is hope, and it cannot be snuffed out if we believe in it." The children nodded, their small faces illuminated by the flickering glow of the lantern. They had come to trust her, and in their trust, Lydia found courage. The first real test came soon after. A group of villagers, led by Mr. Thornton, arrived at the bridge at dusk. They demanded that Lydia leave Hollow Creek and stop her gatherings. The children, frightened, clung to her skirts, but Lydia did not falter. She held the lantern high, its warm glow reflecting in her determined eyes. "I will not leave," she said firmly. "These children have nowhere else. I cannot abandon them." The villagers scoffed and threatened punishment, but before they could act, Mr. Alden arrived. He had seen the confrontation from his house atop the hill and rushed to Lydia's defense. Standing beside her, he addressed the villagers. "Lydia has saved these children from despair. She has taught them courage, kindness, and hope. If you see that as a threat, then perhaps you need to examine your own hearts." The villagers hesitated. Mr. Alden's words carried weight, and for a moment the tension lifted. Though they did not wholly accept Lydia's mission, they withdrew, leaving her and the children under the bridge. That night, Lydia spoke to the lantern with quiet reverence. "We've faced darkness before," she whispered. "We will face it again, but light endures. The coming weeks were not easy." The bridge became a place of vigilance as Lydia navigated the delicate balance between her mission and the scrutiny of the village. She continued teaching the children, but also began preparing them for independence, showing them how to forage, read maps, and speak with courage when confronted by those who sought to intimidate them. Amid these trials, Lydia discovered allies she had not expected. Some villagers, quietly inspired by her courage and kindness, began to offer help in small ways. A loaf of bread left at the bridge, a warm blanket tucked under the wooden beams, whispered words of encouragement. Slowly, Lydia realized that even in opposition, light could find supporters. One night, while tending the lantern, Lydia reflected on the year that had passed. From a small, frightened girl living beneath the bridge, she had grown into a leader, a teacher, and a source of hope. The journey had been painful, filled with hunger, fear, and doubt, but it had also revealed the strength within her. She whispered to the flame, "We are stronger than the cold. We are stronger than fear. And we will rise beyond these shadows." As spring deepened, the bridge became a sanctuary not just for the children, but for the village's unseen hearts. Rumors faded as acts of kindness spread quietly and slowly. Hollow Creek began to change. The children thrived, learning not only survival but empathy and courage. Lydia, though still young, had become a symbol of resilience and hope. And beneath the bridge, as the lantern flickered against the gentle spring wind, Lydia's heart understood a profound truth. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. Light does not triumph because darkness is weak, but because it refuses to surrender. And even in the smallest heart, hope can shine brighter than the harshest shadow. With each passing day, Lydia nurtured her vision of a place where children could grow safely. A dream that extended beyond the bridge, beyond Hollow Creek, and into a future illuminated by courage, kindness, and unwavering hope. The warmth of spring gradually gave way to summer in Hollow Creek. The village streets, once blanketed in snow, now shimmered with morning dew, the air heavy with the scent of wildflowers and the distant river. Yet beneath the old wooden bridge, Lydia's heart's world remained a mixture of light and shadow. The seasons had softened the frost. The challenges she faced had only grown more complex. Though the children thrived under her care, the pressures of the village weighed on her daughter. Thornton, the wealthy landowner, continued to murmur threats, his suspicion of her gatherings deepening. Some villagers began questioning her influence, claiming that a child could not possibly guide others. The whispers were heavy, and the innocence of her mission was tested every day. Yet Lydia's spirit, like the lantern she carried, refused to waver. Each morning she rose with purpose, waking the children and guiding them through tasks designed to nurture both survival skills and inner strength. She taught them to forage for herbs, mend torn clothing, and share food with one another. Every act of teaching became a lesson in courage, empathy, and resilience. One hot afternoon, while gathering firewood near the river bank, Lydia was confronted by a figure she had not expected, the boy she had rescued months earlier. Now older, more confident, but his eyes clouded with fear. "They're coming for us," he whispered urgently. "The villagers. They think we're dangerous. They're planning to burn the bridge." Lydia's heart raced. She had known the path would not be easy, but the threat of losing the bridge, the sanctuary she had built with love, sweat, and tears, shook her to the core. She held the lantern close, feeling the heat of the small flame against her chest. "We cannot let fear rule us," she said softly, though her hands trembled. "We've survived storms worse than this. We will face them together." Tonight, under the flickering glow of the lantern, Lydia gathered all the children and spoke with quiet authority. "The bridge is more than wood and stone. It is a symbol of our hope, our courage, and our determination. They may try to take it, but they cannot take the light we carry inside us. We will protect what is ours, and in doing so, we will show the world what resilience looks like." Over the next days, Lydia worked tirelessly to fortify the bridge. She gathered old planks, reinforced the beams, and prepared safe sleeping areas for the children. Each action was accompanied by lessons of teamwork, planning, and careful courage. Even the youngest children contributed, and in their participation, Lydia found a profound sense of pride. The bridge had become more than a shelter. It was now a classroom, a home, and a symbol of collective strength. But external challenges continued to mount. One morning, Lydia discovered that some of the provisions she had stored, bread, blankets, and firewood, had been stolen. Her heart sank, and for the first time, she felt the bitter sting of betrayal. One of the children, frightened by the villagers' warnings, had taken the supplies to appease Mr. Thornton. Lydia's first instinct was anger, but she quickly realized that fear had guided the child, not malice. She gathered the group and spoke gently, yet firmly. "Fear can make us act without thinking, but courage is in facing our mistakes and choosing to do better. We will recover what was lost, and we will do it together." The children, inspired by her resilience, helped gather new provisions, foraging the forest and seeking out abandoned barns and sheds. Each task became a lesson in resourcefulness, patience, and determination. By the end of the week, the bridge was not only restored, but stronger than before. Through these trials, Lydia's reputation began to change. Some villagers who had doubted her courage now observed her quietly, noting her unwavering determination and the way the children thrived under her guidance. A few even offered discreet support, a basket of apples, a few coins, or a warm quilt left near the bridge. The ripple of kindness, once faint, was beginning to spread. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Lydia reflected on her journey. The bridge, once a cold shelter beneath wooden beams, had become a place of learning, growth, and hope. It was proof that even in the harshest circumstances, determination and courage could create life where there was once only survival. She whispered to the lantern, "We've faced fear, betrayal, and doubt, and still we rise. Our dreams are bigger than any shadow." The children, sensing the depth of her emotions, gathered closer around the lantern. They had come to trust her implicitly, and in their eyes, Lydia saw the first true reflection of her vision, a community bound not by blood or wealth, but by courage, kindness, and shared purpose. Summer deepened, and Lydia's dream of a permanent sanctuary grew clearer. She envisioned a small building near the bridge where children could eat, sleep, and learn without fear of hunger or cold. The vision terrified her at times. It seemed impossible for a child alone to create such a place, yet the determination in her heart refused to yield. One night, as the wind whispered through the trees, Lydia placed her hand on the lantern and spoke softly, "We will build it, not because it is easy, but because it must be done. We carry the light, and the light will guide us in the weeks that followed." Lydia began quietly gathering materials. She sought out abandoned barns, unused boards, and discarded nails. With each small acquisition, she shared stories with the children about persistence, resourcefulness, and hope. Every plank, every nail, became a lesson, a symbol of what could be achieved through determination. By late summer, the foundations of what Lydia called the haven had begun to take shape. The bridge remained a place of immediate refuge, but the new structure symbolized something more, the possibility of a future. Children would not have to endure the cold, hunger, or fear that had shaped her own childhood. And so, beneath the golden glow of the lantern, Lydia Hart, once a frightened orphan girl, now stood as a leader, a visionary, and a beacon of hope. Had faced threats, betrayal, and the harshness of a world that often overlooked the small and powerless, yet through courage, determination, and unwavering belief in the light within, had begun to transform Hollow Creek one child, one plank, and one act of kindness at a time. The bridge, once a symbol of survival, had become a foundation for dreams, and beneath its shadow, Lydia whispered a quiet promise to herself and the children: no darkness can extinguish our light. No fear can stop our journey. We will rise together into a future bright with hope. Autumn arrived in Hollow Creek with a crisp breeze that swept across the village streets, turning leaves into golden carpets. The days grew shorter and the evenings carried a quiet chill. Yet beneath the old wooden bridge, Lydia Hart's world shone brighter than ever. The children she had nurtured over the past year had grown in strength, courage, and spirit. Each child carried a piece of her wisdom, lessons in perseverance, compassion, and hope. And under her guidance, they no longer merely survived, they thrived. The bridge, once a place of refuge, had become a sanctuary of learning, friendship, and shared dreams. Yet Lydia's ambition stretched beyond the bridge. The haven, her vision for a permanent refuge, had begun to rise at the edge of the village. The structure was modest, built from scavenged wood and salvaged materials, but it was filled with hope. Every plank told a story of determination, every nail represented courage, and every window let light into a space that had once known only shadows. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Mr. Thornton, the landowner who had opposed her from the beginning, continued to watch with skepticism. Some villagers still questioned the wisdom of trusting a child with such responsibility. And for Lydia, the weight of leadership, of guiding not only her friends but the vision of an entire sanctuary, pressed heavily on her shoulders. In chilly morning, Lydia gathered the children by the lantern beneath the bridge. Its glow seemed brighter than ever, reflecting the fire of determination in her eyes. "We've come so far," she said softly, "but our journey is not finished. The haven will be a place where no child will have to fear hunger or cold. We carry the light, and it will guide us through every challenge." With renewed purpose, Lydia and the children worked tirelessly. Each day was filled with labor, hammering, sawing, painting, and mending. Yet each action was accompanied by lessons. She taught the children patience when nails bent, problem-solving when boards didn't fit, resilience when the weather threatened to undo their work. Every small triumph became a source of pride and motivation, proving that determination could overcome even the harshest obstacles. One afternoon, a crisis struck. A storm rolled over Hollow Creek with sudden ferocity, rain lashing the bridge in haven sight, threatening to destroy the fruits of their labor. The children panicked, and Lydia felt a moment of fear grip her heart. Yet she took a deep breath, held the lantern high, and spoke with calm authority. "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite it. We will protect what we have built together through the storm." Lydia led the children in securing the materials, reinforcing beams, and salvaging what they could. The night was long and grueling, but the lantern's steady glow guided them. By dawn, the rain had stopped, and the bridge and the beginnings of the haven had survived. Exhausted but triumphant, the children looked to Lydia with awe and gratitude, their small faces glowing. With pride, the villagers, witnessing their efforts, began to take notice. Some approached, hesitantly, offering tools, food, and blankets. Even Mr. Thornton, who had opposed her for so long, observed silently from a distance, perhaps recognizing the courage and determination he had once doubted. Slowly, the light Lydia carried began to illuminate not just the bridge or the haven, but the hearts of the community itself. Over the following weeks, the haven took shape. Windows framed sunlight, doors opened to warmth, and the small structure became a symbol of hope and resilience. Children learned not only survival, but creativity, empathy, and leadership. Lydia watched as her vision unfolded, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Lydia lit the lantern beneath the bridge one last time. The children gathered, older now, wiser, and braver. They had faced fear, hunger, and doubt, voice carrying the weight of lessons learned and dreams realized, the bridge was our beginning. The lantern our guide, and each of you the reason we never gave up. Life will always test you, but remember this, you carry light inside you that cannot be extinguished. Courage is not a gift, it is a choice. Hope is not a chance, it is a decision. And love, the love we share, the kindness we give, will always make the impossible possible. Tears shimmered in her eyes as the children listened, their faces reflecting the lantern's warm glow. In that moment, Lydia understood the deepest truth of her journey. The power to change the world did not come from wealth, authority, or privilege. It came from the courage to act, the resilience to endure, and the unwavering belief in light over darkness. Years later, Hollow Creek remembered Lydia Hart not as a small orphan girl beneath a bridge, but as a visionary, a teacher, and a beacon of hope. The haven flourished, guiding generations of children, and the stories of courage, perseverance, and light she had shared continued to inspire. And beneath the bridge, now a place of quiet memory and reflection, the lantern's glow remained, a symbol of one small girl's unwavering determination, the power of hope, and the truth that even in the darkest moments, light could shine far beyond the shadows. Lydia Hart had begun with nothing but a tattered dress, a broken lantern, and a fierce heart. She ended with a legacy that proved one undeniable fact: any heart that refuses to surrender can illuminate the world.